He's got a lot of power to make some big changes. It's not just Kamala Harris; it's up to him in many cases.
I agree. And that number is 202.
I think if you could repeat that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that number is 202-224-3121.
Hey, everybody.
202-224-3121. And that gets you to the Capitol switchboard, and you can ask for any senator or any member of Congress. And if you're not sure who represents you, just give me your zip code or tell them what state you live in, and they will tell you. Melissa in Seattle. Hey, Melissa, what's on your mind?
Okay. Hey,
Hi,
you all
Tom.
keep
Thank you so much
talking
for
so
taking my
everybody can
call.
hear you.
I just wanted to
on
touch base
Facebook,
on
okay?
the discussion about
Because
poverty
what
in
we're trying to
America.
do, this is a
And how
sound
we
check.
are one of the wealthiest countries that
A
has
sound check
so
so we
much
can make
poverty and
sure
homelessness and
that
despair.
we don't have, some of
And
the problems that we've had in the
I wanted
past.
to give another reason as to.
It sounds good.
Okay,
like
sounds
I said,
good.
I'm glad it's
Can you hear
Friday.
them? Hold on one second. Paul, can you hear?
Yes, yeah, I can hear Maria.
You can hear Attorney Rodriguez and Mrs. Wells.
Chaparral dropped off, but yeah, I could
Okay,
hear.
okay. Maria, keep talking, sweetie.
This is a huge safety issue in our
Oh,
country.
okay, sure. I was saying that I'm glad it's Friday. Ooh, this week was rough.
Bless your heart.
Our crime, exactly. Our crime would go down.
Oh, boy.
It was rough.
Okay, we'll get you some rest this weekend.
Oh, definitely. Looking forward to it. Look forward to it.
Make sure you get some rest.
Yeah, it's so important. If you don't get your 8 hours sleep or whatever, you're not yourself. You're not 100%.
Well, you know what happens? You also Emmy, you also, for me, my immune system takes a hit. So
Yes.
that's what happens to me. I just get sick. And so I just try to, now I'm trying to do something else. I'm trying to space myself a little bit differently because I have a 7-day work week, which is, a friend of mine, this is unsustainable. I said, yeah. I said, what I've got to do right now, So I said, yep, I know it's unsustainable. I said, but I know what I got to do right now. So I don't have much of a choice. So.
Well, you definitely have to take care of yourself.
Yep.
Get the rest you need, eat right, the whole bit.
Get some rest. So.
Yeah.
So
all the old-fashioned stuff. Get rest, exercise, drink.
All that matters. All of it matters.
It really does.
All of
it really does.
All of it matters. It really does. So we have about 1 minute before I'm gonna let you go. I was looking for my glasses and they're on top of my head. I'm turning into the old folks we used to laugh at. Oh my God.
I've done that before too.
It happens to me all the time. I'm like, where are my glasses? I'm like, oh. And I've finally learned to start looking for them. Oh boy. Everybody's up already. Okay. Hey, Lorraine. Thank you, Lorraine. Lorraine, you should call in today. I wish you would. Paula had a birthday yesterday. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Paula, wish her a happy birthday, Maria. Paula Garcini.
Happy birthday, Paula.
Oh, we got to wish her a happy birthday on the air. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, and I'm like, what? Paula.
It was quiet then, huh?
Yeah.
Well kept secret. Wow.
Yeah. Please. Let's celebrate these birthdays.
Hi, this is Santita Jackson.
Definitely. It's a special day. It's the day that we came to this earth, right?
Yeah, well, it's special. Look, everybody's not into it. And, I get it. Everybody's not into it. I kind of have fun with it because my brother, he had, when voicemail got very popular, he put that on his voicemail. This is Jonathan Jackson. This is January. My birthday is on the 7th. Please leave the appropriate message. I was like, are you crazy? He said, Look, people play with their birthdays. He said, I'm not playing with mine. Thing is, all these folks walk around here and they miss your birthday. You know, you miss someone's birthday and people are walking around sad. He said, hey, I'm not going to be sad. You know it's my birthday. Wish me a happy birthday, please. Thank you. That's exactly what he did. I said, okay.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. So, I got that.
Oh.
Let me do this. Okay, just have one more thing. And then that is going to be it, kid, for this.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you so much. Let's get Pastor Brooks up, okay, Paul?
Okay.
All righty.
Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna let you go, Medi, attorney. I hope you call in today.
I may.
Yeah,
It's just
think
that I
about
think
it.
I had to go to the office, so I wasn't able to do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
sweetie. Well, I'm gonna let you go now, so we can go on and get up here. And
All right, you have a good show.
I'm about to put. Thank you, sweetie. I'm about to put on something that looks really crazy, you guys. And you might laugh. You might call me that shaman from. Okay, sweetie. All right. You all might call me the
Bye.
shaman from DC, January 6th. Thank you, Maria. But here we go.
This is AP News. And now to YouTube.
All right, we have Reverend Brooks now.
You know what, you guys? I get really chilly. And so I just, now I'm wearing two sweaters. Two. And this. So, that's kind of sort of what I do. Have to do it. Have to do it, but I'm so glad you all are with me today. All right. Okay, let me say hello. Daryl, how you doing? Praise the Lord to you. Shirley from Philadelphia. Brian.
The allegation was
Good
that
morning.
Diana was duped.
Kenneth, how you doing? Samantha, all my dear friends and Santita Jackson Morning Stars family. Hey, Francis. Thank you, Lorraine, for keeping in touch with everybody. Carol, hey, does Lorraine have your birthday? Francis, Carol, Keith. Hey, sweetie. Danny B. Linda Boyle. Everybody, please like and subscribe on my the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Okay, please like and subscribe over there. And you can come back to Facebook. But we need. I was told by Facebook that we need to build up the YouTube channel because eventually we want to shift everything over there. Is that Pastor Brooks?
I am.
Okay, Paul, let me know when you have someone on, just so I can know who's there. How you doing, Pastor?
I am making this thing do what it do. I can't stop.
You know what? I have an idea that I want to talk with you about after the show. Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to be running, but I have an idea that I would like for us to do. It's a musical idea.
Oh, be good. You know that's right up our alley, man.
Well, honey, I know you can handle that. But
Yes,
it's a musical idea. But let's say hello to everybody. You've got Linda Boyle. You're out in California? Good morning. Hey, now where is this? At Boito? Let me know. Let me know how to pronounce it and where you are in California, Linda. Mark, how you doing? Carmelita, how you doing, sweetie? The anniversary of Bloody Sunday is this weekend. Amen to that. We'll talk about that next week. My father, this will be the first Alabama commemoration that he's missed since he went to Selma in 1965. Wow. Because we're moving into the season where my brother was born. So, yeah. But he just got out of rehab. So, we take all of our victories where we can find them. So, everybody, I'm so glad that you, and please bring up Dr. Verholden. Let me know as soon as you can, okay? That you have her.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So I can know how to move with the show. The sooner I know, the better off I am. Okay, so everybody, we're going to be talking about these stimulus checks that people are not going to be getting, and the taxes you're going to have to pay on this unemployment insurance.
garage
Yeah.
and in your backyard. But
Something
above
needs
all
to
else,
happen.
15.
you have the right to know that this right is under attack, and we must work to protect
10.
it. Because in order to be free, we must be informed. Understand the threats. Protect press freedom.
5.
Get it?
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, March 5th, 2021. Thank you, Carmelita. This is the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Of course, where John Lewis, may he rest in peace, Congressman John Lewis, the iconic John Lewis, and so many others were nearly killed on that Selma to well, it was just a march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That's right. And when you get to Selma, and we should all go one day, maybe that should be a trip we should take. You see just how small this town is, but God does big things in little places. And no matter how small you might think you are, God can do big things through you, and just be available. I have someone who wrote something along those lines, Pastor Darius Brooks, giving us some good news today, and of course, Dr. Deborah Holden. And we're going to be talking about the taxes that you owe on your unemployment compensation. Did you know that? Yeah, it's true. What do you feel about that? I just want to know what you're thinking about that. And what about these stimulus checks, these relief checks? I mean, the package is getting smaller and smaller. Fewer and fewer people are going to have access to the relief that they thought they were going to be getting. And so I want to talk with you about that. I mean, 12 million, 17 million fewer people will be getting fewer relief checks. Wow. So what do you think about that, everybody? I want to know what you're thinking. We're going to talk about all of that today with David Maciotra, Attorney Robert Patillo, Dwight McKee, Chuck Collins from the Institute for Policy Studies has said, he's written a brilliant op-ed piece. He's going to be on with us at the top of the hour, talking about the billionaires. He said they made the most money from the pandemic. They need to pay for the pandemic. There should be a special tax. Nobody's trying to wipe out their wealth, but there should be a special tax. What do you think? I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call or text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. GWC Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text there. Meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page, streaming on Reverend Jackson's page, as well as my landing page, the Santita Jackson page. Everybody, I can't take any more people on that landing page. Please like me and join me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. And please, everybody, like and subscribe on the Santita Jackson Show channel on YouTube. We're trying to build that. And of course, I'm on Instagram, Twitter at Santita J, or at the Santita J Show. I'm on Instagram, Santita Jackson IG. Oh, I'm all over the place. It's a lot, everybody. It's a lot. So I want to hear from you, everybody. And so we're dedicating the show today to our beloved Paula Garcini Zipser. It was her birthday yesterday, and she did not let anyone know. What? Come on, Paula. Happy birthday, girl. We love you, Paula. Everybody, today in Chicago, we're going to have a high of 44 degrees above zero. It will be sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, a high of 47 degrees. Wow, above zero, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 345 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 274 points, and the S&P 500 closed down 51 points. Let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. 17 million won't get stimulus checks. Expect the same for student debt cancellation. That is the headline from Forbes. If you got a first stimulus check and a second stimulus check, there was a good probability that you would get a third stimulus check. However, after the House passed President Biden's $1.9 trillion stimulus package, which included a third stimulus check, something changed. Initially, the criteria to get the third stimulus check of $1,400 for individuals or $2,800 for married couples, joint filers, was based on the same income threshold as the first two stimulus checks. $75,000 income for individuals, $150,000 for married or joint filers. But to appease moderate Democrats in the U.S. Senate who wanted the stimulus checks to be more targeted, the income threshold has been modified. Fewer people will be getting checks, like 17 million. What do you think about that? The Democrats have compromised, or is it capitulated to the moderate Democrats? I want to find out from you. You let me know what you think about all of this. And of course, good news, the U.S. Daily COVID cases are now at a 5-month low as other nations are trying to fend off a surge. The U.S. recorded fewer than 40,000 new daily COVID cases for the first time in 5 months. Just yesterday. That's good news, but you got to stay vigilant, everybody. In the meantime, this is interesting. The Warner Media CEO, this is the parent company of CNN, for example, said on Thursday that the coronavirus pandemic will continue to dominate the news network's coverage because, quote, it's really good for ratings, close quote. Wow. It turns out the pandemic is a pretty big part of the news cycle, Jason Kyler said, and that's not going away anytime soon. It turns out it's really good for ratings. I wonder how that shapes how it's covered. What do you think? Call me, text me, 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. And there's a Japanese supercomputer simulation that shows that wearing 2 masks gives limited benefit in blocking viral spread compared with one properly fitted mask, everybody. Wow. Now, these findings in part contradict recent recommendations from the CDC that 2 masks that were better than 1, but perhaps they should have been more specific. They said you need 1 good, really fitted mask that really cups your face from the nose all the way down through the chin and around your jaw. There should be no space, everybody. No air should be able to get in. Think about it, a minimal amount. Those fever scanners that everyone is using to fight COVID can be wildly inaccurate. That is according to a Washington Post story. Wow. The Food and Drug Administration issued a public alert warning that improper use of temperature scanning devices could lead to inaccurate measurements and, quote, present potentially serious public health risks. Didn't know that? What do you think about that? Wow. Texas watchdog says that the grid operator made a $16 billion error. They overcharged the people of Texas. Indeed, they were supposed to have reset their prices February 18th in the middle of that crisis, but they did not do that. I wonder if people are going to get their money returned. They should be ashamed. That is the headline. That is the headline in Common Dreams. With jobless benefits about to expire in 9 days, Republicans have pulled out all the stops to obstruct the relief bill. Indeed, there was a reading of the bill, more than 600 pages of it, that just ended at 2 a.m. this morning, Eastern Standard Time. The Republican senators had the whole bill read from the first page to the last. Wow, what do you all 628 pages? And anger is growing as the Senate Democrats move to deny relief checks to 17 million. We're going to be talking about that today, everybody. What do you think about that? What about this money? And Bernie Sanders is slamming his fellow Senator Ron Johnson after Republican forces forced this reading of this 628-page reading that lasted more than 10 hours. Wow, everybody. Outrageous. Senator Bernie Sanders says that the corporate lobby should not stand in the way of sharing vaccines with the world's poor. In fact, this is where intellectual properties come into play, everybody. These big corporate giants do not want to share this life-saving information with poorer countries. What do you think about that? Should we share? We share the air, we share the virus, everybody. There's a report that has just come out. Freedom House, a nonpartisan research organization, on Wednesday released its annual report, Freedom in the World, detailing how global democracy was further weakened by the COVID pandemic. And while the United States is still considered free, quote unquote, the country's score has continued to decline over the last decade, dropping 3 points in 2020 alone, everybody. So call me, text me. What do you think about the money? What do you think about the money? Reverend Darius Brooks, the pastor Darius Brooks, I want to know what's on your mind. Of course, the pastor of the magnificent Grace Central Church out in Westchester, Illinois. And of course, he's the Grammy Award-winning psalmist, written some of the greatest modern gospel classics. So glad to have you with us today. What's on your mind today? Give us some good news.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
I was addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around.
Oh, I like that. Thank you. Oh, oh.
Listen, people of God, I was addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around. Listen, when you start understanding what God has for you and how He's doing things, the things hit differently, and your inside are where your dreams are. The outside is where outside is where you dream. The inside is where you create life. And you have to really make sense that this stress of everything that's out here does not be a part of your anatomy. Stress is almost like a bullet. If you're not careful, it can take you out of here. So you got to make sure you're not a part of the hokey pokey. And you don't really have to, in Santita, you don't have to really interrupt what makes you happy. Sometimes all we have to do is alter what doesn't.
Mhm.
Did you hear what I said?
Absolutely.
We don't have to interrupt what makes us happy. Sometimes all we got to do is alter what doesn't. Sometimes when you aren't looking, that's when the best thing happens in every area of your life. So you got to tell yourself the hokey pokey you want to get out of there. And there's so much going on. I was reading this word of God the other day where he says the studying of many books brings weariness to the soul. It means when you're getting a whole lot of information from a whole lot of places, it's not bad, but it will not be directed to what you really need to get you out of this place right here. So when you're not addicted to the hokey pokey, you can literally turn yourself around, and God knows how. It's where they need to be.
Okay, we just lost you, Darius.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Yes.
Yeah, he is so meticulous. God knows how to orchestrate events to move us and everything in his will. Direction is more important than speed. Sometimes we want instant gratifications and microwave results. And and there are a lot of people who really going fast but going nowhere. Yeah, and there's 3 words you need to start putting with you. You can't save the world. God didn't give us that responsibility, but he did give us a responsibility to save ourselves as he worked everything else out. Santina's like you and I, your dad. He puts the right kind of people together to do the right kind of things. One of the things we must keep doing is fighting. We cannot stop fighting. Any interim of fighting, we got to detox. Y'all, we got to take some stuff out of us that's weighing us down. We got to cleanse. We got to cleanse our thoughts. Every now and then, you have to take a break. It's not an option. And the most important thing after your detox and your cleanse is restoring you. And these are not just words coming out of my mouth. I find myself at least once or twice a week getting in a quiet place with nothing to do and just sitting there and meditating on things. And I always ask God to bring things back to my remembrance for direction. Mm-hmm. So once we understand, you don't want to deal with the hokey pokey no more. You got to understand struggle is a part of this thing, but we don't struggle against flesh and blood. We struggle against putting things in their proper perspective. And I want to leave this with you as I get on here because I'm excited. I'm excited. Santita, change isn't just one thing. Change is not just one time. Change is not just one big revelation. Change happens in stages and phases, which add depth, color, and character and create a multi-dimensional, multifaceted me. So when we're talking about change, we don't just do it one time. It's not a one-time thing. When we do change, it's not it's not just one revelation. Every day, the only one thing that don't change is to get us out the hokey pokey. It's understanding the GPS that God has for us. Other than that, every day we get up, we got to use change because every day brings a different experience. So change isn't just one thing. It's not just one time. It's not just one big revelation. Change occurs in stages daily. But it's so important because it deals with your depth, it deals with your color, it deals with your character, it deals with your confidence, it deals with your direction, and it multi-dimensional, multifaceted Darius Brooks. And if you read it for you, Santita, it creates a multi-dimensional and a multifaceted you. All of us are so unique. We're crazy, amazing.
Yes,
But we
yes.
got to follow it in its proper context. Everybody's different. But once I can't say what I said that you taught me something last year, Santita, but once you figure yourself out, baby, the journey becomes as good as the destination. And the people that you need to fight with, the people that you need to move with, all of it will become aligned with the way God has this thing going. The essential mystery is to keep perfect peace in every step that you take. Oh, my
Amen to
goodness.
that.
I used to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We need that. We need some peace right now. We do. We do.
Yeah. And getting out of the hokey pokey helps it.
Turn yourself around.
You turn.
That's what it's all about. Yes. Pastor Darius Brooks, everybody. Grace Central. You need to go to his church. Go online. Go Grace Central Church. And they're in Westchester, Illinois. We just love him. And of course, your will is what's best for me.
That's
Yes,
for me.
that's this Darius Brooks. Oh my goodness, the Tommy's Darius Brooks. We love him so much. Thank you so much. We have got Dr. Deborah Furholden, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University. And Dr. Deborah Furholden, you know what? We have to spend some more time together because we have like a whole tranche of questions that people have for you. I mean, I asked, and Darius understands what this is. Pastor Brooks understands, ask and it shall be given. We ask people to start sending in their questions for Dr. Deb, and they're sending them in every day. Every day. And we had some good news yesterday. We saw the cases fall. But we must remain vigilant. So what is COVID-19 update, or what do you want to touch upon today?
When you say the cases fell, are you talking about nationally or globally?
Well,
Because cases are, I want to be real clear with people. Cases are all over the place.
Nationally. This is what was in the headlines. Absolutely.
So let's put a caveat on that. I'm going to put a caveat on that. Because I did the same thing when the brother predicted we will reach herd immunity. I think he said by April. I told you that's not happening. I don't even know how that got published. So we've been celebrating in my county as an example because we had 12 consecutive weeks of declines in cases. And the way case counts work is you don't get counted the day your test results come back. You don't get counted when you find out you're positive. And positivity in cases is only a function of testing. So you get counted the day you took your test. But you take your test, your results might not come back for 3, 4, 5 days. Some people it's up to a week. Those cases go back in time and get added to the case count for that day. And that's why we typically use moving averages, 7-day or 14-day moving averages. Because if you're looking at it over a period of time versus a discrete, you've locked and loaded on one day, it'll kind of balance that phenomenon out. So we've been using these 7-day moving averages. And then what we found is we opened up in my county on February 1st. And when I say opened up, restaurants reopened, bowling alleys, a couple places like that, different capacity. Nothing, I think, opened up, all the way back to full capacity, but things started to open up. And I said, and I told everybody, we're not going to be able to stay in this state forever, but just be prepared as things open up. This is not some doomsday scenario. This is basic, like epidemiology, infectious disease 101. The more people come in contact with each other, the more spread you're going to see of the virus. And so we opened up 4 weeks ago, and lo and behold, as we go back and start adding cases for test results that have come in, and then there's a little bit of a lag from when a test comes in to when it actually makes it into the database. In fact, we've had an increase in the last 2 weeks. So I would be cautious about celebrating a national decrease. I would give it a few weeks If these things don't persist for at least 4 weeks and it's not a trend, chances are it's either a blip or it's just a function of how cases get counted. And we'll better understand where we are this week by the end of next week.
Well, this wasn't just
So I would take that with a grain of salt. With things reopening, it doesn't quite make sense to me that cases are actually going down.
Well, sure.
It just doesn't. And with all of this,
Well,
go ahead.
you're seeing, no, it's okay, because you're seeing these reports all over the place. But this, of course, came from the National Vaccine Depot. The medical personnel reported this yesterday, and they started talking about it on the news, that it was a daily count. But we're still in the midst of this. And so let me ask you this. Let me back this up. I only have a couple of minutes here. What is a vaccine? Because I'm seeing with people who are becoming more relaxed, with masks, as you're watching Mississippi and Texas and other states open up completely. People seem to believe that, when we were vaccinated as children for measles and rubella and things like that, that was the barrier. As we understood vaccines, they prevented you from getting a disease. But this does not. So is this a vaccine? What is the vaccine? What is a vaccine?
Well, let me be clear. A lot of vaccines don't ensure that you won't actually get it. Most vaccines will ensure that you will not get sick from something.
Okay.
Right? It gives your body training in advance on how to ward it off if you get exposed. And so the way most vaccines work is your body will build an antibody response. The technology that is used for the vaccine to build that antibody response varies from vaccine to vaccine. So we've heard of people being injected with a live attenuated virus. That's actually you getting the virus, but they've knocked a piece or two of it out so that it won't make you really sick, but it'll give your body a chance to build an immune response without you getting sick. We've got this new mRNA vaccine. The mRNA vaccine is working on the key on the outside of the virus, building antibodies just for that, such that if you got exposed, that whole viral molecule won't be able to get its way into your cell and replicate. They work differently. So, like as a personal example, my 3 children were all vaccinated against chickenpox, all on time. My oldest daughter got
30.
the worst case of chickenpox I have ever seen.
Okay.
Like she had them in her mouth, her eyes, it was awful.
Well, we got 20
my
seconds.
My son got 2 little bumps on his belly. My youngest daughter just
15.
had a mild fever for a day. So this is not new. I feel like people are learning
10.
a lot about vaccines now, so their questions are arising. But this is not new how vaccines
5.
work
But
and what kind of protection they do and don't provide.
Well, see, they're not new to you, but they're new to us. And that's why we need you here to help us to work all this out. We're going to be talking about about the money, everybody. Did you know that you got to pay taxes on your unemployment checks that you've got? What do you think about these shrinking? More and more people are not going to get these relief checks. $1,400. We thought it was going to be $2,000. Now it's $600. Now $1,400. Oh, we got to talk on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a few minutes. Dr. Deb, I'm getting a lot of those questions. People are getting very specific because they want to know what this does. And, and I think now you're beginning to see a lot of conflicts, or certainly a lot of spirited discussions. And sometimes they're conflicts because people, feel that once they've had COVID-19, they're immune. So, they half-heartedly wear the masks, or they've gotten vaccinated. So they feel that they can't spread it, they can't contract it. People still believe that. And see, this is not new news to you, but it's something that you almost have to repeat every day, Deborah.
Well, there's a concept in epidemiology called a vector. And a vector is that middle point between a vaccine and an infected person. So early in the pandemic, what we were telling people, and again, it's very cool for me because I do believe knowledge is power. And I want people to have good information. So, my daughter had COVID. And when she came out of isolation, it was like a big celebration in our house.
How is she doing, though?
And I
first,
literally,
how is she doing?
she's doing well, but watch this. Even 2.5 weeks after the onset of her symptoms, she was much better, and that the main symptoms were gone. She lost taste of smell. That's coming back. She didn't lose taste, but she did lose smell. That's coming back, but it's not all the way back. She got, she had a terrible headache. She had a mild fever at different points. Her biggest symptom was extreme fatigue. She was just exhausted. When I tell you, the kid was in bed the whole time. She spent most of isolation horizontal in bed. So as she started to get better, she started to have more energy. And I noticed she would be sitting up in bed. And then I noticed she'd be moving, around in her room a little bit. What was strange was we were talking a day or two after she came out of isolation, and she was breathing heavy. And I said, "Do you notice you're breathing heavy?" She said, "Mom, if I talk for more than about 5 minutes, I gotta really work to catch my breath." So we know some changes have happened under the skin because she's never had breathing problems before, but now she is. It's not debilitating. It's not, but it's something that she notices. So what we all need to do during this season, again, this opportunity for people to really connect with their bodies, right? And I don't know when Dr. Wade is coming back, but she'll talk about that mind, body, soul, spirit connection. People should be really connected to their bodies and listening and paying attention. A brother that I know who's a runner, who was an asymptomatic carrier, but actually gave it to his girlfriend, avoided giving it to his grandmother because he opted to not go to Thanksgiving dinner after all of the tremendous social pressure that we created in Flint for people to honor the social pause for Thanksgiving. He did give it to his girlfriend. He was fine. He was back running by about day 10, but he also reported, "I don't have as much wind as I used to have." So his runs were a little bit shorter. And it took him about a full 3 months before he felt like he got his full wind back. So we don't want people to be a vector, even if you've been vaccinated or if you develop some natural immunity. And what we do know is it looks like natural immunity doesn't last as long as
30
immunity that you get from the vaccine. And people might be wondering, how is that? But that is also not new knowledge.
Well, you know what?
Right? Vaccines are,
No. I'm running because I've got people want to talk about this money. Do you want to talk about this too?
15,
Because,
about unemployment?
Yeah. Well,
10.
yeah. Stay right there. Attorney Patillo, you there?
Yeah.
Mr. McKee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I know.
Wonderful. Dwight, I need you in your phone just a little bit better so we can hear you.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, March 5th, 2021. Thank you, Carmelita, for reminding me that this is the anniversary of Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday. This is the first of the 3 marches that led to the Voting Rights Act, the Selma March across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, which led to the Selma to Montgomery March ultimately, but there were 3 marches. And of course, this was all kicked off by the killing of veteran Jimmy Lee Jackson, who just wanted to register to vote. And then, of course, we had Reverend James Reeb and Mrs. Viola Liuzzo, a mother from Detroit, white mother from Detroit, mother of 5 kids, married woman, who saw what was happening in Selma, and she became so sickened, as did Reverend James Reeb, white minister out of Boston, married father. They became so sickened they went down there and they were killed. They were killed. And so we think of these martyrs who've made our lives possible. And we just thank God for Viola Liuzzo, Mrs. Liuzzo, and we thank God for Reverend James Reeb. We thank God for Jimmy Lee Jackson and several other people who were killed in the aftermath of that march. So much. That's right, 1965, everybody. Whew. So much to think about. Well, let's talk about this money, everybody. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. 17 million won't get stimulus checks. That's right. Expect the same for student loan debt cancellation. In fact, the headlines are really daunting. Moderate Democrats strip the stimulus checks from 12 million voters for no reason, because, of course, these moderate Democrats don't mind giving stimulus checks to very wealthy corporations and affluent individuals. So what do you think about this, everybody? Call me, text me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. What about the fact that Americans are getting less and less money in this $1.9 trillion relief package? Fewer and fewer Americans are going to get some money. Attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, host of his own radio show on WAOK on Sundays from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You got to check that out. Dr. D. Dwight McKee, noted sociologist, National Action Network and Rainbow Push. And of course, we've got Dr. Deb who's sitting with us too because she is looking at the effects of unemployment and people who need money in Flint, Michigan and in Baltimore. She's really going between both places. And so let me start with you, Robert Patillo. What is going on? We saw the whole bill, 628 pages, was read. It took them 10 hours. It didn't end until 2 o'clock your time, Eastern Standard Time. What is going on?
Well, we're seeing the beauties of omnibus legislation, where you get these large Christmas tree-sized bills, and what the American people want right now is economic stimulus and unemployment. We have a 600-page bill that's $1.9 trillion, and a large portion of it is not economic stimulus or unemployment benefits or raises to the minimum wage. There's a lot of other stuff in there, and that's what these moderate Democrats, that's what Republicans are using to oppose the parts that we want. So I don't quite understand. You're negotiating against yourself as Democrats. You're negotiating against the House. And what you see in Democratic politics is this urge to pull towards the center. I remember this with the Affordable Care Act. When that was being negotiated, where Democrats had a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, but we had to continue to move the ball to center right, because of people like Claire McCaskill at the time and other moderate Democrats, where you're literally negotiating against yourself. They could have just taken this bill and really put wherever they felt like in it, and they've hammered it through the same way Republicans would have done. You never see Republicans making their bills more moderate, more liberal. If they have the majority, they hammer that thing through. They beat it through, then they look at you like you're stupid. So if they can pass a $1.5 trillion tax cut, they can pass a $1.3 trillion spending bill, they can pass a $780 million defense authorization bill, and Democrats can do nothing about it, then why exactly is it so difficult to get stimulus to the American people? And as we are hearing rumblings of, Donald Trump was able to get more money to the American people than Joe Biden was able to do. And the reason is because Donald Trump just, quite frankly, don't care, was going to get things done. And I think Democrats are expecting, Donald Trump has changed American politics for the foreseeable future and perhaps forever, because the expectations of voters is far different than it was under Obama or under previous presidents, where we were willing to, go for these normal political talk. After seeing the way that Trump basically walked in like a gangster and just made people do stuff, and even from Mar-a-Lago, still looms large and can make Republicans cower before him. You don't see Joe Manchin coming to the White House the same way that Lindsey Graham will go to Mar-a-Lago and bend the knee and cower before him. You don't see Kristen Sinema having the same reverence for Joe Biden that you'll see a Hawley have for Donald Trump, where they literally talk about him like the sun god or the God King here on earth. And I think because of that, Joe Biden doesn't have the same ability to whip his caucus. So now you're taking you're reducing the threshold for the stimulus checks by $20,000. Who exactly does that bring across the line? What U.S. senator was saying, well, I won't vote for this $1.9 trillion bill right now, but if you screw some more poor people or some more middle class people, then I'll vote for it. Who exactly was that? Because no Republicans are going to support the bill. So this is for moderate Democrats to come across the line. And I think it's important we see this, and we have to treat them the same way that the MAGAs have been treating the traditional establishment Republicans, which is you don't toe the line and we primary you immediately. And that's why you had so many Republican senators in mortal fear, so that Lindsey Graham can give a speech one week saying how he's off board with Trump, and the next week be in Mar-a-Lago dressed like Mini-Me, where he had the same pants, same shirt, same hat on, cowering before the king. And I think until Democrats get that same gumption around them, we're not going to see the changes we need legislatively, and the clock is ticking while they have this majority.
And to your point, to your brilliant point, Attorney Robert Patillo, Dwight McKee, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on Wednesday, I don't understand the political or economic wisdom in allowing Trump to give more people relief checks than a Democratic administration. People went far too long without relief last year. If anything, we should be more generous, not more stingy. Dwight McKee, your reaction.
Well, the reason is in this country, rich lives matter. These are values issues. And Robert, the reason they don't fight that fight is because they share those values. The Democrats and Republicans actually have the same values to a degree. And so when it was time to give the rich $1 trillion, the Democrats signed off on it without resistance, because that is also the constituency that pays their bills that they try to appeal to. When it's time to give to the poor, then they want to read the bill and want to figure out, why the bill is an overstimulation, and the people who are getting the bill should be moderated, because those people don't count as much as the rich do for them, because they're drinking out the same pool. They're going to the same well, getting their money from the rich, running their campaigns, and that's who they are fighting on behalf of. It's the same system, the same values, the same crowd.
What will be the political price, or will there be a political price, Robert Patillo, for Democrats, for Republicans?
Oh, there absolutely will be a political price if they don't push through the progressive agenda that people came out and voted for. I want people to understand. Every time you look on cable news or you see these rallies, and you see black folks, young black people, these MAGA hats on. So the Candace Owenses, the Tatum, so on and so forth. I know a lot of these people. I'm friends with a lot of these people. If you look on their Facebook pages and you scroll back to 2007 and 2008, they'll have Obama shirts on. These were the children of the Obama era. These were the people who were knocking on doors and volunteering for President Obama's first term. These were the people who were carpooling with their college friends and putting their money together in order to come to inauguration, to see the historic moment of Barack Obama being inaugurated. They were the people in Grant Park with me in Chicago and some of my friends in law school, crying in the park when the family walked out. And the reason they're now Trumpers was they were disappointed by the Obama administration. It was the amount of moderation. It was about the amount of equivocation. Remember when Obama ran, he said he would heal the earth. That he was talking about bold, progressive policies, and to see that being beat down into very moderate, very centrist policies, I think that really alienated an entire generation of people who should have been the stalwarts and the bulwarks of the Democratic Party going forward. So if you do not deliver an agenda for people, you lose those people. Particularly, we had so many young people, so many first-time voters, so many minorities turn out in record numbers. Right here in Georgia, when Joe Biden came down and said, if you put Warnock and Ossoff in office, those $2,000 checks go out. Those people don't turn back out. When you turn back to politics as usual. And remember, you have the great white shark still circling around the perimeter, being Donald Trump. And everything you don't do, he's going to start hopping back out and sniping at you. Well, I got you $2,000 checks going out. I was able to get grow. And these same moderate, quote unquote, Democrats, people like Warnock, who's up for election in 2022, the best way for him to win re-election.
Oh, we have to get Attorney Patillo back.
Yeah, he just dropped.
Okay, well, we'll get him back. Why don't you pick up on that, Dwight McKee? How can he win re-election when people are not getting these checks?
He won't. He won't. Is that basic? Is people put everything on the line, as Robert said, because they were promised. People weren't responding to Biden and Obama. They were promising. They were reacting to promises and commitments. They really believed back then when Obama said hope and change. They really believe when Biden say, I'm going to bring something different. They voted based on a belief and an expectation. And at the point that they're going to be denied that is that they're going to lose that zeal. And either they're going to not vote, they're going to get behind Bernie, or they're going to join Trump's organization and fight the good fight. People are not going to just keep getting disappointed and think that you can get the same enthusiasm from them. They feel deceived,
Well,
and they were.
Well, do you know what? We've got Attorney Patillo back. Attorney Patillo, and I'm going to bring you in, Dr. Deb, because I want you to react to this too.
Yeah.
Because we are citizens, and this is real talk that's on the ground talk. Attorney Patillo, I wanted you to pick back up on your point, which Dwight McKee picked up on. He said, I asked him, what will be the political impact for Warnock, for Senator Warnock specifically, someone in whom we have vested so much hope and energy. And he's a good man. But the fact is, people sent him there to deliver. What will happen? Will he win? Can he bring people out?
Warnock, just like many of the other Democrats who are up for re-election, are dependent on pushing through the agenda they ran on. Because realistically, let's fast forward. Let's put on our fortune teller hats like Johnny Carson used to. Let's look forward a few. Let's look into the future a few years. And what exactly do you run on as a Democrat in 2022 if you ain't do all the stuff you promised in 2020? If you don't push through a minimum wage reform, if you don't push through stimulus checks, if you don't push through student loan reform, if you don't push through environmental regulations, then what exactly are you coming back to the voters in 2022 and saying, put me back in office for? And then you already played your big joker, which was fighting against Trump and the specter of Trump. That was 2020 was about. You're not going to have Trump to motivate your base in 2022. And nobody votes against Congress. You can't make Mitch McConnell the enemy in these things because that's too much of a deep cut for the average American voter. So what exactly do Democrats run on if they do not do the things that they promised in this election? And that's what I think these moderate, quote unquote, Democrats have to think of. Because if you don't have comprehensive immigration reform done, if you don't have universal health care done, if you don't have student loan reform and cancellation done, if you don't have minimum wage reform done, if you don't have stimulus checks, not just this, we're fighting over $1,400 right now. Remember, the American economy is about $20 trillion and has been on restriction for a year. So you can't have a $20 trillion economy and then send out $3 trillion in relief to keep it afloat and then expect it to keep pumping along. The government has to make up that gap in the middle. So instead of having $3 trillion overall of stimulus, we really need to have somewhere around $10 to $15 trillion to make up the gap which a normal economy would be producing. It's almost like a credit card where you stimulate the economy, then you pay it off later to prevent the whole thing from crashing and going bankrupt all at once. We saw this in Greece 10 years ago during the Great Recession, where you had to have the EU step in and bail it out because they tried austerity. And we try to austerity our way through this economic recovery. You end up with this same slowed recovery that we saw in the Obama administration after the Republicans took back the majority and they slowed down his agenda. Right now, we're slowing down the agenda ourselves without the Republicans having to do it. And so somebody's going to have to get in there and start doing some whipping. Somebody's going to have to get in there and play that LBJ role during the 1968 civil rights set. Somebody's going to have to be able to go to these moderate Democratic senators and say, look, homeboy, I hate to let you know this, but you don't have a choice. Your choices are either you vote in favor of this agenda or you get primaried. And let me let you know, we're early on in this administration. If you're not on board, you get no committee assignments, you get no amendments, you get no riders put in the bills, you get no pork barrel spending to go back home, no highway projects, no military spending in your state. You get none of the slush fund money that we put out there. And that's the way that you bend these senators. And Donald Trump did not care to go walk down with that whip. He'll get on Twitter and browbeat a senator into, I've never seen anything like it. Senator been in office 30, 40 years. He will beat them down on Twitter to the point that they will come out there with one of those storm blankets on, shivering, saying, well, I'm sorry, sir. So it's hard going from that to now all of a sudden the president has no ability to get some dude from West Virginia to act right. So unless we're able to do that, then there's going to be no chance in 2022.
Well, because he's governing as a senator, not as a president. I mean, you have to be LBJ. Politics is power, period. And I think you should be compassionate. You should be moral. You should be ethical. But you should be clear that you need to dance with the ones who brung you. Let me bring on Dr. Deborah Verholden, because I heard you itching to get in this. Because you see, I mean, you see the effects of no money in Flint, in Baltimore. I mean, you see this on the ground as you talk about health inequity, not just inequality. He said, no, this thing is not. There is no equity here. So when you hear people who were expecting 2,000, then they got 600, and then they, 1,400. And Bernie Sanders says, no, you need to give people $2,000 a month because they need to be sustained as we fight our way through this crisis. What say you about the money that people are not going to get? Because you got 3 young voters who are your children too. You see this from a lot of angles.
Yeah, I got 3 young voters who also all benefit from the stimulus package, the last one. Mm-hmm. And in my family, you know, we're a spades family. So we sit around the table, and spades in my house is like a passage, rite of passage, right? And who you get as your spades partner and all that. And there's a concept in spades called the renege. And that's when you play off suit, even though you got that suit in your hand. You have the capacity to play the suit that's being played, but you play a different one. And people call a renege, and it costs you when you get caught on a renege. If you cut a card and you actually had a heart, you cut heart, people are watching. Other players, your opponents are watching. And if you play a heart by the end of that hand, they'll call a renege. They take your 3 books. Game is a wrap. I think what we're seeing is political reneging. People who have made certain promises, and whether or not they can fulfill on them because they don't actually have the votes, they don't have the support and all that. A renege is a renege, and people will not forget. They will not forget that these people made promises and then they reneged on them. And if you've ever been in a Black family at a spades game, you would think people's lives were on the line. Word is everything. And if you break your word and you renege, and then different people have different rules. Some people say you got to point to the exact book that I reneged on. But realize people are watching. They will be, it's that one right there. That's the book right there where you cut hearts, but you actually had a heart. You just played a heart. You played that 8 of hearts, and that book right there, you cut my king of hearts, renege. People are smart enough people, because now we're talking about the things that impact people's daily lives. And we joked about it, right? But when these stimulus checks came out, when enhanced unemployment finally got unclogged, and people who have been waiting for months finally got their big check that was their back pay, and a promise that they were going to get their regular pay, and they knew how long that would be, man, you saw all kinds of used car lots couldn't get them cars off the lot fast enough. This is real money for people, and getting that money in a way that allows people to do transformational things in their life, yes, like solve their transportation problems, or resolve outstanding electricity bills, or resolve back rent, and all these other things was transformative for a lot of people.
That's right.
So to have that reneged on, people are not going to forget. And I just want to give one little bit of practical info, because you said it during the Facebook part of the program, which is that this is not free money. These stimulus checks are basically an advance on your tax return, and unemployment is taxable income. And I now know that people have the option when they get these resources.
Right.
You have the option when you get your unemployment to let them take taxes out beforehand,
yes,
or to pay it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have opted to not have taxes taken out, or they didn't understand that. So what's happening now, because unfortunately, a lot of people use their income tax return as a no interest loan to the government, which is bad business. I do my very best, and I play the numbers to make sure that I'm paying my fair share of taxes throughout the year, but I don't want some big refund check at the end of the year, because I'd rather have that money in my paycheck all year long so I can be a good steward of my own money. I don't like getting a big $5,000-$10,000 tax refund. But there are certain people who have organized their finances around getting an income tax return because they like to get a big lump sum. But that lump sum is nothing but the equivalent of an interest-free loan that they've given to the government all year. You don't get your income taxes back with interest added.
Absolutely.
Right? So I encourage people to make sure that they understand how things work, because imagine the financial burden that people are going to be hit with for the people who didn't know when they figure out as they're filing their income tax return right now, or even worse, will opt to not file a return because they made no provisions and put none of that money to the side to pay the income taxes on it that would ultimately come due.
Well, you know,
so it is this kind of dissemination is important. People need to understand how things work.
Well, and also remember, people's margins are so tight, they can't afford to have their taxes taken out of that unemployment. We have to be clear, folks, before the pandemic, did not have $400 for an emergency room visit at the hospital. People, it's tight out here. Was it Lamont Dozier, Holland had a song 40 plus years ago. Fishing ain't biting. I'm out here fighting. I ain't catching nothing. People have no money. No money. Chappelle, we're going to get to you on the other side of the break because I know you've got something to say. Coming up, we've got Chuck Collins from the Institute for Policy Studies. He's saying that, you know what? The billionaires made more money from this pandemic than anybody. Now, they need to pay their fair share of taxes. So what do you think about that? Now, people are trying to
30.
give Elizabeth Warren the business, but she said, no, I'm not going to back up. I'm not going to back down. So what do you think? What do you think as we're finding that Americans are getting fewer and fewer dollars? Oh, it's all about the money today on the Santita Jackson.
15.
Call me, text me at 773-763 WCPT 773-763 9278. GWC Lawyer has the opportunity to text me there on WCPT 820 and AM 950 Radio, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Happy birthday, Paula. Santita Jackson Show. Well, go, Deb. I knew you were chomping at the bit. Attorney Patillo, Dwight McKee. I love you guys. Oh, my gosh. This is wonderful stuff. Ooh. Thank you all so much.
Hey, good morning, Dwight. But it's real and it's practical. People need to know how things work, and they need to understand the promises that were made relative to what's being delivered. Because we know how to call a Renege. We know how to do that.
You bought it today.
We can do that with our vote.
And I know you, and I know you keep a razor by your card. You buy your little.
Oh my gosh! You know, look, you had to bring it to me because I don't play. I don't know how to play spades, but I do know what renege means.
I don't even understand that.
I know what
I don't
renege
even
means.
know.
I know what renege means. I know what it means. I know what it means. I know what it means. It means you wait a minute.
And nobody loves a reneger.
Oh, anywhere.
There, I said it. There.
Yeah, anywhere. I mean, like, what is this?
Yeah.
This is horrible. This is horrible. And you know what? And they better come on. They better come on with it and give these people their money. Is your Pearl there? Chaparral? Paul? Okay. Chaparral is there.
I'm here, Santita.
Okay, I'm going to bring you on in a little bit, but I wanted you to say hello to Dr. Deb and Dr. D and Attorney Patillo before they go.
Hello, guys.
You want to give the
I am
Facebook audience a little bit of
loving
what
this
you were
conversation.
saying?
Well, my thing was, my main thing, Santita, was I told y'all so. I knew that he was who he was, and we've been saying it for the longest. And we sitting up here expecting a different result. This is who this man was. You know, you have the Democrats who should be pushing this agenda. But if they don't believe in the agenda that the House passed, and there's even some House members that don't believe in the agenda, even though they passed it. But we know that we have this problem in the Senate. And this is why you have a chief of staff. This is why you have a majority whip. This is why you have the leader of the Senate, because these are the people that carry the vote. And none of them are pushing. The president isn't pushing. The vice president isn't pushing. So no one is pushing, but we're expected to accept this type of behavior. No, ma'am.
No one
No.
but the progressives. Now, this crowd for progressives, they're pushing. I just saw Jamal Bowman, and he was unrepentant. I saw him on an interview yesterday, and they did not cut him off, thank goodness, because they've done that to him. He said, "No. We were elected, and we elected him to do this." And so you heard the moderator, because he's not journalist anymore. Well, what if he said no. We elected him to do this. We elected them to do this. And if he doesn't come through, he's got a problem. I said, then I can deal with that. People out here are having real folks problems.
I told you we got grown folk bills out here.
Yes.
You sitting up here, people talking about, you realize that you only get probably like about 60% on unemployment, and then you want to tax it, so now you're down to 50%. Come on, people. People are not making it. And then the fact that they have the nerve to cut the people who are getting the stimulus, and you got 17 million people who are not going to get it, who got it last time.
That's
I
unbelievable.
told you, I said, Trump my friend. Y'all can call him whatever y'all want. But he sent me some money. He sent me some money to hold me over. And he was my friend. He's still going to be my friend. And if Biden sent me some money, he's going to be my friend too. I love them all who's going to send me some money.
Well,
so my thing is that we have to begin to tell them what we need in a forceful way. I don't know how we can do it at this point, because it seems like they're caving every day. It reminds me so much of Obama and the Obamacare thing, where he took the public option off the table before it was even debated upon. I was like, what the hell?
Well, I think she's being very honest with us, Chuck Collins. So I think,
tell us how you feel.
just a little bit of candor, right? So,
Absolutely.
Well, no, please. This is how you write. So, I mean, look, you have company because you're all over these billionaires. I mean, you are all over them like a second skin. And I love it, everybody. This is Chuck Collins, who's going to talk to us about why the billionaires need to be taxed. They have made so much money, while the rich have gotten richer, or the uber wealthy have gotten uber wealthier, and the poor have gotten poorer. I mean, it's like, and the Biden Harris administration, it's like they're caving on this thing. I'm like, wait, people need money. I mean, I appreciate what they're doing with the vaccine rollout. That's great. But if you get COVID-19, Dr. Deborah Furholden, a world-renowned epidemiologist, is with us. She is at Michigan State University. She's building their School of Public Health.
1 minute.
Her daughter just had COVID. She's been public about that. How many people can afford to be home for a couple of weeks? Not these essential workers, Deborah. You know that. People need money. Stand by. Oh, they need money. I sound like Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. Talk about that moolah, y'all. That's my days in D.C., Deborah. Go, go. Go. My brother came home from boarding school
30.
with that. And we were like, what is this music? Girl, 2 weeks at Howard, I was all the way in on go-go. All the way in on it.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. You know, I have like 20 CDs by Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers and EU and everybody else. Stand by. Coming up. Thank you, Chuck Collins, for
10.
making me go back to my college years, which was just last
5.
month. Oh.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, oh boy, Mr. Pearl's got something to say. So don't worry about this. And sending our love to Paula Zipser. That's right, Paula Garcini Zipser, one of our original morning stars. It's her birthday. At least it was yesterday. Girl, why keep it a secret? Happy birthday, Paula. Everybody, give her some love. Happy birthday, Paula. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT, 820 in Chicago, and AM 950 radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Chad Larson and all my friends up there sending you much love. We got a lot to talk about today as we're talking about this money, the money that people are not getting and the money that billionaires are not paying. Chuck Collins is going to talk to us about that in a couple of seconds. Chicago is going to have a high of 44 degrees above zero. It will be sunny today. It's already beautiful. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 47 degrees above zero, partly cloudy. In this part of the country, I need to let you know it's above zero. The Dow closed down 345 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 274 points. The S&P 500 down 51 points. Let's get to a few of these headlines. 17 million people will not get stimulus checks. Expect the same for student loan cancellation. That is the headline in Forbes, because the criteria to get your stimulus or relief checks, really that's what they are, they have been changed. Indeed, moderate Democrats have stripped stimulus checks specifically from 12 million voters, having given tax breaks to affluent corporations and Americans. Wow. What about that? What will be the political impact, everybody? You let me know. In the meantime, there was a reading, a 628-page reading of the coronavirus bill pushed by Republicans. It lasted more than 10 hours. It did not end until 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time today. In the meantime, anger is growing as people are saying, stop nickel and diming the American people. Senate Democrats are moving to deny relief checks in total. Not just 12 million people, but to 17 million Americans. Wow. As jobless benefits are set to expire in 9 days, Republicans are pulling out all the stops not to fund this $1.9 trillion relief bill. In the meantime, a Texas watchdog group has said that ERCOT, which is the big electrical, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, known as ERCOT, they set the price of electricity at $9,000 a megawatt hour maximum. They should have done a reset when they had the emergency down in Texas. They did not, and so they've overcharged their consumers by, get this, $16 billion. $16 billion. In the meantime, we did see something, and thank you so much, Dr. Deborah, for helping us to understand that we're still in the midst of this crisis. But there is a watchdog group, and in fact, they are the National Vaccine Depot, and they said, well, the United States recorded fewer than 40,000 new daily cases just for one day, and yet, we're seeing. We're seeing Texas and Mississippi unmasked, but their private businesses are saying they're going to stay masked. And many frontline workers are very uneasy because they said, now you're going to put us into conflict with a lot of customers, and that could prove quite explosive, everybody. Interestingly enough, the head of Warner Media, that is the parent company of CNN, they said the coronavirus, well, it's really good for ratings. It turns out the pandemic is a pretty big part of the news cycle, and that's not going away anytime soon. It turns out it's really good for ratings. I wonder how that shapes the ratings. How does that shape how that's being reported? Let's get to Chuck Collins. I want to know this. Now, Chuck Collins does brilliant work as the director of the program on inequality and the common good at the Institute for Policy Studies. You got to go to inequality.org if you want to really understand. I mean, just see the numbers. I mean, and it's beautifully done. They've got the graphics. It breaks it down for us. Just somebody's got money. It's just not most of us. His new book is The Wealth Hoarders: How Billionaires Pay Millions to Hide Trillions. Let me say that one more time. The Wealth Hoarders: How Billionaires Pay Millions to Hide Trillions. Wow. In his opinion, tax billionaires' wealth should help pay for this pandemic recovery. Chuck Collins, welcome back to the show. Well, you know your family now. You've been here frequently, and we love having you here. Chuck Collins.
Oh, it's so great to be with you. Thank you for having me back.
Always, always, always.
And we've made it to March. We have survived to March, which is no small thing.
No, it's no small thing. You're absolutely right, because a lot of people have not. A lot of people have not. Indeed, just COVID-19 alone.
But we'd be thankful.
We should be thankful. I mean, COVID-19 alone has taken more than 500,000 people. But other diseases take people too, and we have to be mindful of the fact that most Americans do not have enough money to pay for the kind of care that they would need if they need to battle cancer, if they need to battle, or if they need to really keep their diabetes in check. I mean, there's a lot going on. Heart disease is still a driver of death in the American society. That having been said, now, why are you all over these billionaires? I mean, why do you feel that they should help to pay for the pandemic recovery? I mean, are they being picked on?
Well, no, actually, I think we have lived through this year with so much loss. People have lost their lives and their livelihoods. They maybe lost their health for the rest of their life, and they're struggling economically. There were people who had no savings going into the pandemic, and there are going to be more people who have no savings coming out of it. And yet, our U.S. billionaires have seen their wealth surge since mid-March. Their wealth has gone up $1.3 trillion. And we're talking about 660 people, Santita, 660 billionaires who have their combined wealth is 4.2 trillion, and their wealth has gone up 1.2 trillion.
Chuck, wait.
Just to put that in perspective, since we don't know what a trillion is, right?
I think
half of the U.S. population.
Yes, break that down for us.
Half the U.S. population, the bottom half, combined wealth is 2.4 trillion. So that's everybody, 165 million families in the bottom half of U.S. society. A third of whom probably are zero or negative wealth. All of those households combined have way less than 660 billionaires.
How did
and so they're the big winner.
How
well,
did that happen?
Yeah. We've been living through this time of extraordinary inequality really for 4 decades. If I were to summarize why in a bumper sticker, it's that the rules of the economy, tax policy, trade policy, government spending or not spending, the rules have been tipped in favor of wealth holders, people who have a lot of money, at the expense of people who work for wages. And that, if you do that for 40 years, here we are.
Is that the Reagan Revolution?
It started with the Reagan Revolution. It started in the late 70s, early 80s with the lean and mean economic policies, cutting taxes for the very wealthy, deregulating the economy, undermining the safety net such as it existed. And you do that for 40 years, you have extreme, grotesque inequality.
It seems that there is broad support, bipartisan support for a tax on the wealthy. Please explain that. And what's the holdup?
Well, that is a really important point. 70%, consistently for 2 years, 70% of the population has supported proposals to tax the wealthy. Senator Warren and Representative Jai Paul introduced their wealth tax on Monday. And again, 70% of the public. So, you have to wonder, I think it's because the wealthy have a lot of power to block things. They don't have a lot of power to necessarily advance their agenda, but just as we're watching with this stimulus bill, the particularly the Republicans, they are the party of no. They are the blockers. So even though a majority of Republicans and independents support a tax on wealth like this, they will use what little remaining power they have to block change. But the good news is people who get out in front of this, politicians who support it, are getting in front of the parade. The public is already there. The public already supports this.
Well, what does this? What is it? It's uh, the Warner Giant Paul Boyle bill.
Yes.
What does it outline, and how much money would it yield?
What it is it's a tax on wealth. It's not a tax on income, and it's a tax on wealth on an annual basis. So we don't have a wealth tax. We have an inheritance tax at the end of life. And if your listeners are sitting here and they have less than $50 million, then they will not pay this tax. So it starts at 50 million. Every dollar over 50 million is taxed 2 cents on the dollar, 2%. If you have $1 billion, you pay 3 cents on the dollar over $1 billion. And it would raise about $3 trillion over the next 10 years. And we did an analysis that half of that money, half of that revenue will come from billionaires, from 660 billionaires. They will be paying about 1.4 trillion, or almost half of all that revenue. So it's a very progressive tax. It raises a lot of money from less than 100,000 households in the U.S.
Why is this? Why does this make sense? I mean, and why would it not make sense to some? Because it really only impacts what you said, 650. I mean, we're a nation of 330 million people. I'm trying to get my mind around these numbers that you're giving me. And only
I kind of threw a lot of numbers at you, but think of 660 people. We can envision that. That's enough. One small section of an auditorium, a sports stadium. But the reason it makes sense is because, first of all, we now have a lot of expenses related to the pandemic. We're trying to solve a national emergency. We're trying to get vaccines into people's arms, and we're trying to get checks to people so that their businesses don't go under and they don't go under. We're racking up some debt. It would be a mistake to turn around and ask working people, low-income people, the people who have suffered the most during the pandemic, to pay the bills at this point. They just are not in a position to do that. Whereas these billionaires have seen their wealth literally accelerate during the pandemic. So one reason is that's where the money is. They have the capacity to pay. It's not going to make that big a difference in their life. I mean, even like Mark Zuckerberg, let's say if the tax was in place last year, he would pay $3 billion in an annual wealth tax. He'd still have $97 billion left, which is still, way more than he had in March. Mm-hmm. So these billionaires are going to be okay. They're going to be okay. They won't even, it'll be like a mosquito flying by them. But it'll make a huge difference in terms of where the money comes from. The other reason, though, Santita, is these folks have so much wealth and power. And if we want to protect our democracy against, let's call whatever we call a plutocracy or aristocracy or money royalty, we need to reduce that concentration of wealth and power. So it's also really important for the health of our democracy to not have so much power in so few hands.
Well, when you run into, I wouldn't just say the right wing media. I would say the corporatist buzzsaw, because you have Democrats who are protecting this as well. It's a bipartisan betrayal, quite frankly, to me. Just you understand what I'm saying? I'm saying, wait a minute. You have a lot of people. This is a real fight that Elizabeth Warren and Jamila Priapal and Congressman Boyle are having inside of the party. So this is you got the people on one side, and I guess you have the corporatists on the other side trying to protect this wealth. In the meantime, we're watching really the fibers of our country begin to fray. I mean, I can't help but think that January 6th, that this is part of the problem, because you had a lot of people up there
Yeah.
white people who have black problems now, who have no money, and they have no way of getting up out of this hole. I mean, what would this wealth tax pay for? Because $1.9 trillion, quite frankly, I think that's a great. It's a nice first step, but Chuck Collins, that is not going to give relief to people. People are really hurting.
No, you're right, and I mean, I think what we need to do is think really big right now. I mean, what the Republicans and the corporate want us to do is say, we can't do big things together. Government can't make a difference in people's lives. You're all on your own. Go out there and figure it out on your own. But let's take things like, raising the floor, raising the minimum wage, universal health insurance, so nobody has to, worry. We have a society where you could lose a job, get an illness, get divorced, whatever, and become destitute. And so we just need to have a decency floor, a safety net that catches everybody. That's what good societies do, and there are plenty of wealthy capitalist societies around the world who do that better than we do. That's key. And then infrastructure. Think about what happened in Texas to the energy grid. Think about the quality of our public infrastructure, the need to fix and retrofit our public buildings so they don't leak so much energy so we can reduce our oil dependence. We could invest in infrastructure that would put millions of people to work in good paying jobs and fix up this country and prepare ourselves for the next generation. Why is it that so many young people graduate with debt, student debt? That's appalling. Why couldn't we have a program like after World War II that benefited millions of white people, 1% fixed rate home ownership loans, Farmers Home, FHA, GI Bill, things that my Chicago parents took advantage of? They got, low cost home ownership. We could do all those things if we tax the wealthy in a way we used to in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and invest it in things that make people's lives better and create opportunity. That's the vision that Republicans are scared of. That if we succeeded in actually making a difference in people's lives, improving people's lives, that's what they're trying to stop right now.
Chuck Collins, what shifted in the culture that made us more accepting of this? I mean, I'm thinking back to the 80s with Dynasty and all of those wonderful programs that really it normalized extreme wealth, it humanized extreme wealth. And when things are normalized and when people become humanized, you become more accepting of them. And it's like we don't have the pushback against.
Well, I think you're putting your finger. In a way, I think everybody was told, go out and figure it out on your own, or you can become individually wealthy, which is somewhat of a myth, because if you actually honestly look at how people become wealthy in this country, there's kind of a support system, public investments and family help, community investments that create the fertile ground for people to have good lives and some of them to become wealthy. And we sort of bought the myth that, it's all about individuals, it's all about individual action. If a few people work hard and are smart, they can get rich. Anybody can do it. That mythology made us look away from the fact that actually we can make investments together that will lift up everybody, and that will be good for the rich, even in our society. So I think that individualism, that kind of excessive individualism, is one of the cultural shifts.
Chuck Collins, inequality.org, everybody. You've got to get this new book, The Wealth Hoarders, How Billionaires Pay Millions to Hide Trillions. As I read this, my eyes just popped. Thinking of people who have billions, who pay millions to save and hide trillions. How? I mean, and it's legal. I mean, whatever you say about Donald Trump, he said, "Look, I did what was legal. This is this is the way the tax code. This is the way, as Elizabeth Warren said, the game is rigged. The system is built this way, but the average person is hounded for taxes. The average person is hounded for bills. What can we do to change this, to make this right?"
Well, I think the first step is just understanding there is a separate set of rules for the richest 1/10 of 1%. People with $30 million or more can hire tax attorneys and wealth managers and accountants, and they have a whole menu of gimmicks, if you will, tools that they use. They create trusts. They create what's called a dynasty trust. So going back to the dynasty show, it's like there are wealthy families that are creating multi-century dynasties right now because they're taking their money and they're hiding it in trusts and they're putting it outside the reach of taxes and accountability forever. And they're using offshore tax havens and bank accounts in Caribbean islands, and they're using the whole shell game, if you will, to hide their money. We can fix that. We can actually outlaw certain kinds of trusts. We can enforce tax laws so the wealthy pay their fair share. We actually have to do that because we won't be able to do the other stuff we were talking about in terms of a wealth tax if the rich are hiding their money. And right now, wealthy people are like going, uh-oh, government's going to, Biden and government's going to come for our wealth. And they're like freeloaders after a big party at the restaurant. They're like slipping out the back door before the bill comes. That's happening right now. But so we need to draw attention to it, and we need to get our lawmakers to wake up and plug the leaks. And it's entirely possible. But we have to kind of raise up we have to get, that's why I wrote that book, because I think most people don't understand there's almost $40 trillion hiding in trusts and offshore corporations and anonymous bank accounts and the like.
And most of us don't know that the bankers' bailout was really more than $20 trillion. And we're trying to get $1.9 trillion. Chuck Collins, the last minute belongs to you.
Well, it's great that you're having these conversations. I think, I think that our listeners have to realize if you support these ideas, you're in the majority, and you need to push lawmakers and talk to your neighbors and sort of deal with that mythology that, wealth comes from people only working hard. It comes from we as a society who create that wealth. Again,
1 minute.
Check out inequality.org, and we have a little newsletter that comes out every week that comes from me that talks about what it is we can all do together to reverse these inequalities. But I just thank you for the conversations you have every day, Santita, and how you invite people in to really engage in ideas that not enough people are talking about right now.
Well, I thank you for your magnificent work. Everybody, you've got to get this book, The Wealth Hoarders. It is great how billionaires pay millions to hide trillions. Inequality.org. Inequality.org. Sign up for the newsletter because I get it. I love it. And my mind is blown every day. I hope you will come back regularly, Chuck Collins, so that you can keep us informed.
Would be my honor.
Thank you. I'd be honored to have you because we need to know what's happening here. While we're begging for $1.9 trillion, tens of trillions of dollars being hidden. Somebody's gluttonous. And we've got all this pain out here. This is not going to work, everybody. David Masiotra and Chappelle is holding on, the candid one, on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Chuck Collins?
Hey, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, really? You're thanking me?
Oh, it was fun. That was fun. No, I love hearing your show.
Oh, look, I love having you. And thank you for always being so kind and responsive. I mean, you really are the best. And I love your work. I really, really love your work. Love your work. So thank you. And I'm going to have you back regularly because I think that these numbers need to be normalized for us. I think that's the thing.
Yeah. No, I got to find a better way to explain it too. It's too many numbers, but yeah.
No.
But I think let's talk more about that hidden wealth because I think that would be fun. And I have that whole Chicago connection. So
yes,
the Northern Trust and the Northern Trust Company and all these. That's where the money is.
Oh,
hiding in those vaults.
Would you please? Oh my gosh, please. No. I want you to come on because so much happens in Chicago. Come on. Love this. I love this city's crazy city, but there is a lot of wealth locked away, but it's locked away from people. And this is socially unsustainable. You know this. I know this. And when people find out, you know, David Daly, who comes on my show regularly. David, you know, the author of Unrigged and Red Effed and, you know, brilliant from
He
Fair
is
Voting.
great. Yeah.
David
Yeah.
said, you know, what we need to understand is that there's a 50-50 split in the Senate, but the 50 Democrats represent 41 million more voters, citizens.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've got the numbers on our side, and we cannot campaign and run and allow the Democrats to govern as if we're not in the majority. Now, I don't want tyranny, Chuck Collins. Now, I'm not with that.
Yeah, we just don't want minority rule in the sense of a small segment dominating, blocking the rest of the agenda. Yeah,
blocking my money.
We got to act like we're them. That's why I keep saying we got to act like we're the majority. We got to understand we're up against some powerful, you know, roadblocks. But if we can push people. I heard yesterday that Senator Tammy Baldwin, you know, and I'm born in Madison and know the, you know, she's not signing on to the wealth tax bill. And I was just like, oh, you know, I understand, you know, she's got crazy Ron Jackson and, you know, Ron Johnson.
Yeah.
But, you know, then that she's looking over her shoulder. But this is a popular thing. You know, her Trump voters, some of them love this wealth tax thing. You know, like don't be afraid.
Well, you know, we have to understand how to work the political system too. We've got to call. We've got to send email.
1 minute.
These people don't stay in office in a vacuum. You know, every call, every email is X number of voters, X number of constituents, and we need to understand that. Got to get engaged. Got to get engaged in the process. Yeah. We've got to. But
absolutely.
I want to thank you, and I'm going to call you because I want to have you on. I'd love to have you on, you know, a couple of times a month if you can, because we've got to get the word out.
Early mornings are good for me. I'm up early.
I appreciate
Usually
it.
don't have others. Not enough people do morning shows, so yeah, I'm glad you're in the morning. Catch them in the morning.
Okay, at 2 a.m. I'm going to think of you. Okay, when I'm up.
Yeah, really. I know. Yeah. All right. Bless you. Take care.
Blessings to you. Thank you. David Maciotra. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Santita. How are you?
How are you? Oh, wow. What phone are you on? You sound fantastic.
15.
Oh, that's just the natural effervescence of my voice.
10.
Yes, it is. Well, cha-cha-cha. How about that?
5.
You're inspiring me.
Oh, I love you, David. You are.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, everybody. Thank goodness. And guess what? Yesterday was Paula's birthday. Paula Garcini Zipser. We are celebrating our girl. That's right. Happy birthday to you, Paula. Sending you much love. My girl, my girl, my girl. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. We're on Reverend Jesse Jackson's page and the Santita Jackson landing page. Everybody, I can't get any more friends on the Santita Jackson page. So please friend me over on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. But please, I need you to like and subscribe, everybody, on the Santita Jackson Show on YouTube, that channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And of course, at Santita J on Twitter and at Santita J Show on Twitter. And we want to hear from you, want to talk with you today. We've been talking about the money, and Chappell's been holding on because she wants to jump in. David Maciotra is joining us. I'm always so thrilled to have him. He's written so many brilliant books on John Mellencamp and Barack Obama. His latest fare, of course, is I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters. And as we look at progressive politics, really, Bernie Sanders gave him the credit for mainstreaming, for black, white, brown, yellow, and red, and elevating, but mainstreaming progressive politics 40 years ago. His accomplishments are so great. What a brilliant book. And so it's wonderful to have you on here as we look at the taxes upon the rich that don't happen, but the taxes upon the unemployed that will happen. And AOC, you know, we're looking at the relief checks, not stimulus, relief, $1.9 trillion relief bill. That's what it is, because people lost jobs, lost health insurance, and their unemployment insurance is about to run out. and the bonus that they got for unemployment because the jobs are not there. Well, that's a problem too. I mean, that money shrank, but the bills didn't shrink. So I want to know what you're thinking, everybody. 17 million Americans will not get the stimulus checks that they thought they were going to get because moderate Democrats have pushed, and the establishment Democrats said, okay. What do you think about that? What about, we've been talking about the wealth tax that most Americans want, but the Democrats and Republicans say no. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said, I don't understand the political or economic wisdom in allowing Trump to give more people relief checks than a Democratic administration. Ouch. David Masiotra, what say you about these times?
Thank you for having me back, Santita. This Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is correct that this is yet another Democratic Party unforced error. For some bizarre reason, negotiating with themselves to deprive 12 million Americans of a stimulus check who otherwise received it under the Trump administration. Robert Frost, the great poet, once said that a liberal is a person who won't even take his own side in a debate. And that's a bit what we're seeing here. That, and of course, the continuation of the Democratic Party's drift, which really began in the 1970s. And you were kind enough to allude to my book, Reverend Jesse Jackson fought against in the 1980s, this corporate drift within Democratic Party politics. So moving away from a working class base and into an upper middle class suburban base. The good news is that 98% of Americans who received stimulus checks in the first round will still receive them in this round. And that presents the Democratic Party with an opportunity if they are bold and willing and courageous enough to take it. And the opportunity is as follows. American politics has become divorced from the material interest and financial struggles of poor, working class, and even middle class Americans. And the Republican Party loves that because the Republican Party offers nothing to the American people. And they're not going to stand at a podium and say, we're slavishly devoted to the rich and to multinational corporations, and we give you nothing, so come on out and vote for us. They know that's a losing strategy. So what they want to do is make sure that when the average American discusses and debates politics, the average American is discussing the gender of Mr. Potato Head or Dr. Seuss or other issues that don't really have anything to do with the day-to-day struggle of the working single mom or the long-haul truck driver or the family farmer or the home health care worker. So the Democratic Party now has an opportunity to return American politics to the material interests and struggles of the vast majority of the populace. If they take that opportunity, they can begin to redefine what qualifies as political debate in our country. If they blow it by continuing to make moves like, lowering the means testing for stimulus checks, then they'll play right into right-wing hands, deprive millions of people of the assistance that they so desperately need, and give the Republican Party a victory at the same time that the Republican Party is veering dangerously into fascist territory on the right. And what I would say to punctuate this analysis is one of the things that separated Jesse Jackson as a politician, because he wasn't a conventional, traditional politician, from even someone like Bernie Sanders, is Jesse Jackson was always and continues to tell people to get into the streets. Bernie Sanders has not even done that. So what we're learning is if we want a $15 minimum wage, we have to fill the streets and act out the wisdom that Franklin Delano Roosevelt gave to labor leaders when he, talking about New Deal programs, said, okay, I want to do it, but you have to make me do it. Meaning you have to build a popular movement in the streets that applies pressure to politicians. That is the opportunity that all of us as citizens have. And if we don't rise to that opportunity, we risk endangering the country the same way that the Democrats risk endangering the country if they don't rise to the opportunity to really start acting in the interest of working class politics and economics.
Call me at 773. Call David Masiotra at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. WCPT. You can text us at that number. GWC Injury Lawyers gives you that opportunity. But I want to know from you, what do you think about this, everybody? Now we're moving into the spring. It's warming up. It's warming up. Are you ready to march the way we marched behind George Floyd to get $15 an hour and move beyond that? Are you pushing to get more relief, not stimulus, relief, which will actually stimulate the economy? We don't need $1.9 trillion. We need much more than that. Bernie Sanders said, $2,000 a month, baseline for every family. This is what you need. So what do you think about that? Let me bring on Chapearl, David. Chapearl, you've been holding on for a minute. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for allowing me on to speak. And my thing is that I sit here and I think about Malcolm X in this moment, how we've been hoodwinked, run them up, led astray, lied to by this Democratic Party. And I tried my best to be optimistic and hopeful, and I did vote blue no matter who, and I held my nose and damn near drowned to vote for Biden and the Harris administration. To come to this, for them to cave on everything they said they would do. We have been fooled yet once again. And the thing is that they keep showing us, and everybody keep on saying, well, it's better than the Republicans. We got to vote for them. No, we don't. I'm tired. I'm tired of you playing with my life. I am tired of not getting what you have promised. We have a 50-50 Senate right now and a VP who can override it. Why are we debating about this filibuster? Why are we taking and removing things out without even pressure from the Republicans to do so? The Democrats constantly cave because you know why? It was never in them to support the American people. And so we keep trying to fool ourselves to think that they are for us, but they're not. They're for the corporations just like the Republicans are. And until we begin to push back and tell them no more, they're going to need to lose 2022, 2024, 2028. They're going to need to lose all of that for them to understand they're going to quit playing with us. But if we continue to give them our support day in and day out, we're going to continue to get the same result.
Well, you know what?
We see the stats.
Chapearl, I would tweak it a bit, and I want you to stay with me, and David, I want you to respond to her. I would tweak it a bit because I don't know if they need to lose 2022, 24, and 26 and 28. I do believe that we've got
to do.
I'm
saying it's going to happen. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's going to happen because they have failed us.
I got you, but what
I'm not saying that I want them to do it.
No,
I didn't. It's going to happen because they have failed us.
I didn't infer that. But what I am saying is this: we must do our part to push them. I think that's something that David Masiotra just brought up, that Reverend Jackson has taught us down through the years, and Dr. King taught us. Because SELC, Dr. King is from, you got to get out in these streets and you've got to make things happen. You've got to make a phone call. When I worked for Congressman Gus Savage, he was very, very, and I've had Deputy Governor Luanna Peters on here who ran his office. They were both very, 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 very deliberate and intent on knowing who called the office. Because every letter, every phone call meant X number of constituents and or voters. And they were very, very serious about that. We have got to do that. And you don't give people your vote. You know, I've talked to you about this before, Chaparral. People have to earn your vote. Now, and people have to get beyond the symbolism. The kicks and the pearls are nice. That's great. But you need a little bit more than that, everybody. Stay right there, Chaparral, because I want David to react to what he's heard, and I want you to react to him. David, you hear Chaparral and her anger. I don't need to speak for Chaparral. Chaparral's right here. Chaparral, are you angry, frustrated, what, disappointed? What is it?
I mean, at this point, Santita, I'm just like blah, because we know that this is what was going to happen. And, you know, you try to have a little glimpse of hope, to hope that they would do the right thing, considering we're in a pandemic, considering we have this massive unemployment, considering we don't have full health care, considering all of this, you still have the Dems caving on issues that matter to the people. And so I was really pessimistic about what would be a possibility of a Biden-Harris administration. And like I said earlier, I told you so. We got exactly what he said he was going to do. We knew who he was. This leopard did not change his spot. He is who he is, and they have the power. But what my thing is, Santita, I don't want the public to believe that the Democrats can't do anything and it's the Republicans that's harboring them. No, they have the power to do whatever it is that they want to push through. They are filibustering their own agenda because they don't believe in it. And that's just what I feel.
Now, Charles Mitchell says that you need to vote Republican then. No, just stay right there.
No, I need to stay. I need to stay independent. I'm gonna vote who cares for me. That's it.
Well,
I love who love me.
David Masiotra, why don't you respond to her before we go to the other callers?
Yeah, I would rather fight centrists than fascists, and the country is in a better position if we're fighting with centrists than if we have to fight with fascists. The Republican Party no longer accepts democratic norms. Right now, they're trying to obliterate voting rights in state after state. They offer no alternative whatsoever. I mean, we can't, not one Republican is voting for the COVID relief bill. So as flawed as one might find that bill, what is the Republican alternative? The Republican alternative is nothing. Look to what just happened in Texas during the winter storm if you want a preview of what the country would look like if these nihilistic anarchists were allowed to govern the entire country. Now, so we have to be strategic about this. But that being said, there are opportunities within the Democratic Party. There is Bernie Sanders, there's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, there's Ilhan Omar, there is Elizabeth Warren. There are many others, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, who are working to make the party more progressive and more responsive to the needs of the people. No equivalent of those figures exist within the Republican Party. So I share Chaparral's anger at the dismal Democrats who are too quick to compromise, too quick to conform. But we have a strategic interest in the party, and we can manipulate the potential within the party to move the country toward a progressive direction. But if we just give up, surrender, and say, well, the Democrats let us down again, so we might as well let the Republicans run the show, things are just going to get worse and worse and worse, to the extent that we may not even have a democracy to begin with. So, we don't want to cut out crucial nuance, and we don't want to take a stack of dynamite to our interest, even though there are sufficient reasons for anger and disappointment.
Let me go to
But
Robert.
politics
Yes.
is
No, please go.
but
Keep on.
politics requires constant engagement and activism. As important as voting is, the great leaders of our country who built movements have taught us that voting is something that we do as a tactical move every 2 years, not every 4. We have to include local races and the midterms. But in between our trips to the ballot box, we're in the streets, we're on the phones, we are coalescing with networks of committed activists to apply pressure on the people for whom we vote. If we make voting the be-all, end-all, then these disappointments will only continue. So once again, the responsibility falls on us. Who do we want to empower within the Democratic Party? Do we want to empower Senator Warren, or do we want to empower Senator Manchin? Well, if we just go to sleep, then Manchin gets his way. But if we make them do it, as Franklin Delano Roosevelt told labor leaders, then people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and the squad will prevail.
Robert from Wisconsin. What's on your mind, Robert?
Yeah, I think the person you're speaking with, his comments are hilarious. Let's be real. Let's stop these people gaslighting us, okay? The squad hasn't done anything. The Justice Democrats have done nothing. They've done social media posts. They've done tweets. They've written sternly worded letters. They haven't done anything. They went along with the CARES Act. They funneled trillions of dollars to the big corporations and the wealthy so they can buy up people's homes and businesses, right, during this pandemic. And they didn't push for leverage on Medicare for all, and now they're not pushing for the minimum wage. And when they didn't push for Medicare for all with the speakership, they said they were going to fight for minimum wage. These people are frauds, and then that's the reality. So let's stop kidding ourselves. It's time to primary the Justice Democrats. Have a nice day.
Wait a minute, but not Joe Manchin? Okay. I mean, really? Not Senator Sinema?
Yeah.
And I mean, I respect his opinion. I just respectfully disagree. But I also hear Chaparral. I hear you, David Maciotro, but I hear Chaparral. I mean, I hear people who are poor in America are already living through a disaster, an unmitigated, unrelenting disaster. People are not eating today. People are trying to fix breakfast. Just one meal today will do it for a whole lot of Americans, whole lot of people. You have a developing world, which we used to call the third world, but that's not what you're supposed to do anymore. We have a developing world within the United States, and you have a lot of Americans who are living in their cars. I mean, if not up under a viaduct. There is just this, oh, David, it's like these folks got 80 million votes. The Democrats represent 41 million more people in the Senate than the Republicans do. President Biden can't govern as a senator. Compromise. I got it. No. Now's the time for you to run this stuff. You got to run the tables on this thing.
No, you're exactly right about that, Santita. That first of all, this COVID relief package should have been rammed through by now. Why we're still discussing it 7 weeks after Biden raised his hand and took the oath of office is beyond me. That should have been ready and raring to go, and he should get rid of the filibuster. Well, the Senate should get rid of the filibuster, and they should ram through a progressive agenda, just as the Republicans would.
Yeah.
You notice that when the Republicans are in power, we don't see any of this simpering hesitancy. But when the Democrats are in power, suddenly we have to consult the parliamentarian, which no one had even heard of until 5 minutes ago. So, I'm with you entirely on that. And I'm with you entirely on the unfortunate reticence of this party to govern as if they have a mandate, which they do. They have a clear mandate, and as you imply with those Senate statistics, the mandate is even stronger than the seat assignment would indicate. And they should be talking about health care. They should be talking about, let's look at the minimum wage for a second, $15 an hour. If someone works a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and works 50 weeks out of the year, $15 an hour is $30,000 a year. So when we're debating if $15 an hour is too much, what we're saying to working men and women across America is, you don't deserve $30,000 a year. And many of these people are those that we heralded as essential workers. But at the risk of redundancy and the risk of repeating myself, if the Democrats, because of Joe Manchin, are not going to fight for 15, then we need to make them do it. If they had to remove it from the stimulus bill to get the bill through, they should have known that and done it 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they should bring the $15 minimum wage forward on its own. And they should do that with millions of activists propelling them forward. But if we just take our ball and go home, we're going to lose the game no matter what happens.
You've made the point, really. I've got 30 seconds left. They belong to you. We've got to take to the streets in a peaceful, nonviolent way. David Maciotro.
Yeah, and you were wise to reference
1 minute.
The murder, the police lynching of George Floyd. That led to an explosion of activism. And that activism has results. It has not only electoral results, but there are cities and states across the country adopting police reform agenda. Now, in some cases, that agenda is insufficient, but it's progress. In some cases, that agenda is much more promising. A similar movement can have similar results on economic issues. And we have a situation in this country where the majority of Americans are living lives of struggle and precarity. That's something we don't talk about, but that needs to go mainstream, just as Black Lives Matter and police abuse of power has gone mainstream.
David Maciotro, I Am Somebody. Why Jesse Jackson Matters. Barack Obama, Invisible Man. John Mellencamp. You've got to get these books. Our heroes, everybody. And of course, he's one of mine, the great David Maciotro from Salon Magazine. I will see you on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson on Sunday morning at 7 a.m. And on the Saturday morning forum of Rainbow Push tomorrow at 10 a.m. And back here next week. I'm Santita Jackson. God bless you, everybody. Happy birthday, Paula. God bless you, everybody. WCPT AM 950 Radio. Have a great weekend. David Maciotro, you are the best. I'm about to close out on Facebook Live. Is there anything that you'd like to say that was left unsaid?
Well, I understand the anger and the disappointment people have with the Democratic Party. I'm reading a book about President Kennedy right now, and I read this amazing story about when George Wallace was going to prevent the integration of the University of Mississippi. Robert Kennedy, as Attorney General, called George Wallace's office, and he said, if you do that, we will arrest you under federal laws, and we will ensure that you go to prison at the federal penitentiary in Atlanta, which has the highest concentration of Nation of Islam members. Right, exactly. And, you know, I would love to see that type of fighting spirit return to the Democratic Party. I would love to see Joe Biden display that type of fighting spirit and audacity. But if it doesn't happen, we have to remember that as much as we can praise President Kennedy and then President Johnson for the progressive reforms of the 1960s, they were able to synergize their efforts with a massive movement in the streets and in cities and counties across the country. And that lesson repeated in the 2020 race. The two states that the Democratic Party was able to, well, they flipped more than two states, but the two states that surprised most people were Arizona and Georgia. And the reason why they flipped Arizona and Georgia and not Texas, for example, is in Arizona and Georgia, the Democratic Party joined efforts with local movements. So in Arizona, it was a Latino movement and an indigenous movement aimed at getting out the vote. And in Georgia, it was a movement among black voters. In Texas, they didn't do that, even though activist leaders in Texas were practically begging for it. So there's another lesson that we can make a bet on who will prevail according to when and where there's a movement on the streets and where it is coalescing with the progressive interests of the Democratic Party. So that's my word to the wise to your audience, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share it.
Look, you know what? I appreciate you more than I can say. You've got one of the most brilliant minds, and really, I think that you understand where we are and where we need to go. I really do. That's why, you know, I feel so blessed to be with all of you every day, because we're able to have some really thoughtful conversations, and you're one of the most provocative and most brilliant thinkers I know. And I thank you for being with us, because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot going on, David Masiotra, all the time now, every day. It's like you have whiplash. I mean, I'm up at 2 in the morning because I'm trying to catch some more headlines, because I don't know how the story might have changed by the time we get to bed about 10, 10:30, 11. I don't get a lot of sleep. That having been said, you guys, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on. And we need to be vigilant. And I hope that you will call your representatives. And I hope that this summer we don't have to wait to see someone, pardon me, in a snuff film. Because that's really what happened with George Floyd. That was a snuff film. And I think that's why we were also traumatized by it. Because you literally watch someone choke to death before your very eyes. Well, people are being choked to death before our very eyes, David, right now.
Right. I actually wrote a column about that in which I said the exact same thing, and I would encourage everyone to read it so they know I wasn't being disrespectful or minimizing what happened to Floyd. But I said it shouldn't require a snuff film for us to fill the streets and actually engage with our democratic system, because although the image might not be as traumatic and we might not be able to watch it in real time and feel the horror of it, you know, there are situations as tragic as Floyd's death happening on a daily basis across the United States. I mean, what do we say for the thousands of Americans who die every year because they don't have health insurance?
That's it.
You know, those are lives that we didn't have to lose. Maybe it's not as gruesome as a police officer deliberately murdering the people, but it's a form of what the journalist Chris Hedges recently called social murder in one of his columns.
Yes. And that's what it is every day. And we can't be desensitized to that. We can't. And we have to get involved in this political process, everybody. FDR told A. Philip Randolph and all those black leaders who gathered in his office, you're right. being lynched, living with Jim Crow, making no money, and being asked to fight to liberate people abroad. Yeah, that's a lot. But, I need you, and I need you to go out in the streets and make me do it. You need to march. Kennedy, there's a wonderful book called The Bystander. You're familiar with that?
Yes.
And it really lets you know, it really outlines President Kennedy's ambivalence towards civil rights. Look, he did not have any, he was, he didn't have familiarity, if you will, with the civil rights movement. He was a wealthy white New Englander. He had his own fights as an Irishman, in a WASP society, but he was not a black person in America. Okay. So when he got into, and Profiles in Courage really profiled, it was really a very conservative book. His heroes were quite conservative. That having been said, he had to be pushed. He had to be pushed. I mean, it doesn't make me like him, admire him any less. Because if you listen to him, David Maciotro, toward the end of his presidency, well, toward the end of his life, not toward the end of his presidency, when he said that he was going to reveal these councils that are oppressing us and that really run our world, I said, oh boy. When he took our money out of the Federal Reserve and said, no, we're going to print our own money. We're not going to have anything to do with you. He had clearly seen some things, but he was being pushed in the streets, David.
Yeah, he and his brother needed that push, and they also. That's the number one factor. The number two factor is, you're correct, as brilliant and worldly as they were naive about what they called the race problem. They thought that they could, issue lofty rhetoric and allow activists to win the battle state by state, city by city. And it wasn't until they actually saw the lengths to which people like Bull Connor and George Wallace were willing to go to prevent black people from becoming full human beings in the United States that they realized it was a much bigger problem than they had previously thought. There's a particularly offensive story regarding I'm sure you're well aware of it, a helicopter ride that JFK took with George Wallace. Well, I'll clean up the language. George Wallace and JFK were on a helicopter ride together, and George Wallace talked to JFK about the only reason that Martin Luther King and Fred Shuttlesworth, who was an Alabama civil rights leader, were involved in the civil rights movement is they wanted to have sexual congress with white women.
Absolutely.
And Kennedy got off the helicopter and refused to do the photo op. He was so appalled by those remarks. He said, I never want to be seen in a photo with that man. So even someone as smart as Kennedy was naive about the enemy that black Americans and really any Americans who were for freedom and democracy and equality were facing. So they needed that push from the street, and they needed to see it for themselves. The Democratic Party of today, confused because we all saw it on January 6th. Mm-hmm. We saw the enemy, and we should fight accordingly.
And we've been seeing this over and over and over again as black people. Walking down the street, hear some footsteps behind you. Oh, the Isley brothers called it footsteps in the dark. I turn around, I see nooses and dogs, okay? This January 6th was not new. Everybody, this was not something that just, oh my goodness, where did this has been happening in America since before the Republic was founded. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? Chaos or community? A great man wrote that book. I think it was Dr. King. What do you want to do? We see where America started, but America is an idea and an ideal that has been evolving. Now, where do we want to go? Do you really want a republic? Because a constitutional republic is not a constitutional monarchy, and believe me, that's a light year away from where they are in England. I love Harry and Meghan, but they are as disconnected as I want them to be, as disconnected from my reality as they can possibly be, because I don't want any parts of a monarchy here. Oligarchy is more than enough for me. And you see, trying to fight the power, 650 families, all the wealth that they control. I mean, and Elizabeth Warren is in the buzzsaw trying to get them to pay not an income tax, but a wealth tax. These people made more money than anybody, David. So
Right.
we got to wake up, David. So I mean, just
Yeah,
yes.
You're so right about the naivete that debilitates so many white liberals who, no matter what happens, no matter how extreme the right wing becomes, thinks that we can still negotiate and compromise. I recently listened to the first conversation I had with Reverend Jesse Jackson, which took place in 2014. It was the first interview I conducted. And he made a statement during our conversation. The Democratic Party does not fight vigorously enough against Confederates, which will lead to a worsening of the extremism on the right. I mean, people like that who have such a long history of fighting Confederates, facing down Confederates, feeling the threat and danger, not only politically but personally, that neo-Confederates present, are under no illusions about the battle in which we find ourselves and the measures, the peaceful, nonviolent, political, but aggressive measures that we have to take in order to succeed. So we have these leaders. We're blessed to have these leaders walking among us. We need to listen to their counsel and act in accordance with it.
Amen to that. Well, you know what? I want to have you back. I hope you can join us again, if not next week, sometime very, very soon, whenever your schedule will allow, because we've got to amplify this conversation and accelerate it, if you will, because we're coming into the spring, and we shouldn't have another George Floyd. We shouldn't have another January 6th. Some of what was driving the anguish that you saw January 6th. And I'm not excusing anyone, but I am trying to look behind the curtains, take a peek. These people are hurting too. No money. Now, is their blame misplaced? Yeah. But you have a lot of people who have a whole lot in common. And there are a lot of forces that keep us from talking to each other or with each other. They keep us talking about and at each other. Got to stop that, everybody. Because most people in America are living under the boot. We are all George Floyd. David? We're all living precariously.
Yeah, and we can try and fail or succeed, or we could not try and guarantee failure. And what I'm talking about is, the Democratic Party, with a certain sense of liberal elitism right now, feels that there are people with whom they shouldn't even speak, people who are beyond the possibility of persuasion. And many of these people, as you suggest, are facing their own form of economic struggle and financial precarity. And the Republican Party, for as racist and hostile as they've become, are at least giving them a theory that explains their difficulty. Well, and it's called scapegoating. Your problems are the fault of poor blacks on welfare, or your problems are the fault of Latino immigrants sneaking across the border. Well, that's nonsense, and that's racist, and that's harmful to our country. But if the Democratic Party doesn't get in the conversation, and as Chuck Collins was saying, your previous guest, and as Elizabeth Warren is saying when she talks about the wealth tax, and as Bernie Sanders says, and present the correct argument that their problem is actually the result of a continual drift toward corporate control and wealth hoarding, as Chuck Collins' book puts it,
then of course they're not going to win the debate. I mean, it's like we can apply that famous Michael Jordan quote, I missed every shot I didn't take. Democrats at least have to take the shot.
I missed every shot I didn't take. What did Reverend Jackson say? If you run, you might lose, you might win. If you don't run, you're guaranteed to lose.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you don't run, you might lose. He said, if you do run, you might lose. If you don't run, you're guaranteed to lose. Everybody,
That's exactly right.
You know what, David? People have to get in the fight.
Or like he says, what is the other great one? We never lost a battle we fought. We never won a battle unless we fought.
Unless we fought. And it's true. It's so true. Do you have a closing thought?
I'll leave it with that. I think that's
every time you
that's
give
a great
me something, I'm like, I want to get more because you have pearls that just drop out of your mouth too. It's like it's fantastic. But everybody, get out there, get in the fight, get in the fight. You need to call your representatives on the federal and state and local levels. You need to get involved and be respectful. We don't need to be unkind and nasty and disrespectful. We don't need to troll and cancel and be unkind to each other. Look, we need to be fighting for the best in our country and the best in ourselves. We don't need to fight each other. Just let's be respectful, but be purposeful and fight. Fight for yourself. Stand up for these kids who need to be in school, whether they are young or old, because we need continuing education. We can build a world, we can build a country that is worthy of us. We're not supposed to, this is not supposed to be a hellish world. That's a result of bad thinking, bad-mindedness. We've got to stop this. We can have a world in which we can have equal access to equal high-quality education, health care. Everybody can have decent housing. You can have access to great food. We don't need to have farmers destroying their crops because the food distribution chain has been disrupted. Well, you got hungry people in America. It's wrong. I'm not going to say it doesn't make sense. It does make sense. But a lot of these people who help to run our world don't believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. First of all, they don't believe in life because they don't promote it. You can abort outside the womb, okay? So stop. So while we're looking for vaccines, look for therapeutics and look for a national health plan. Because if you get COVID-19 and if you get this vaccine, you can still get it and you can still spread it. You probably can't pay for it. Because trust me, getting well from COVID-19 costs some money. Do you have that? You might have health insurance, but can you pay that 20%? That copay? Can you? If we had the right kind of healthcare system, that would not even be a worry for us. Think about those things. And more than that, move on them. Fight. Fight for yourself. Don't just put it on somebody else. And certainly do not put it on a leader who is long gone. Because everybody loves Malcolm X. Everybody loves Gandhi. Everybody loves Dr. King. It's just they are not here. And they were very unpopular on the days that they died. Malcolm X spoke to an almost empty Audubon ballroom. Dr. King could not fill up that temple in Memphis, Tennessee, and he couldn't get in pulpits, black pulpits. More than 55% of black people disapproved of him, more than 70% of white Americans. Come on. Gandhi was killed taking a walk amongst his own people. David, were you going to say something, hon?
Oh, I was. I'm sorry to break your momentum.
No, you're not.
But it was interesting. Yesterday on MSNBC, one of their hosts interviewed the Wall Street Journal's Israel-Palestine correspondent, and there's a major injustice that we could discuss regarding Israel's refusal to distribute vaccines to the Palestinians. So I don't want to trivialize that, but just put that aside for a moment. The host asked her, and remember, this is a correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, which isn't exactly the socialist worker. Why has Israel handled COVID-19 so well? And the first thing she said was they have a universal healthcare system.
Absolutely.
And she said it casually, and the MSNBC host just moved on, like this is something we can't have here. She was discussing the geography there, or something of that nature. It's latitude, longitude coordinates. These are man-made and man-administered systems. And the only reason we don't have that system here is because of the decisions of human beings.
Absolutely. Oh, I wasn't interrupting you. I was giving you an amen. Call and response, church. No, that's it. Because that's one of the arguments that I've been making on the show. I'm like, okay, we're talking about a vaccine. That's nice. But you're not talking about therapeutics. The head of Merck last summer said, and to fully disclose, it's an interview that's become famous, but they've shut it down. Fully disclose, the woman who interviewed him, she's a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School. She's married. She's a cousin by marriage. She's married to my first cousin. And he said, look, we're doing Americans a grave disservice by telling them that the vaccine is a silver bullet. You hear Dr. Deborah Verholden telling you every day that it is like we have like a Swiss cheese model. This is a layer that can be helpful to you. But they're giving away, the National Health Service in Great Britain is sending out vitamin D because they see that they're sending it out. And a white conservative MP was the one who pushed them to do it. Because their research showed Black and Indian doctors said, wait a minute, we are dying disproportionately over there from COVID-19. We're seeing that, vitamin D deficiencies. But when you try to have that discussion here, the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to have it. You've got to push.
Right, because they can't profit from it.
Okay.
And that also shows the awful gap that exists between American politics and the politics in many Western European countries and Canada. One of the correspondents for the Financial Times said Bernie Sanders could be a social democrat in Germany. And for those who don't know, the Social Democrats are the moderate party in Germany. So your point about a conservative MP in Britain, reveals the gap that exists here. Our conservatives are extremists far off the scale who don't want to provide people with any social services. There's a consensus that exists in countries like the United Kingdom for health care, for education, and for child care.
Absolutely. And we're the ones who can push the needle on that. We're the ones who can normalize healthcare for everybody. We're the ones who are in our way. Because I promise you, when you make a decision, these politicians and the corporations will listen. Because they know that that they do all that they do because we allow it. It's on us.
That's exactly right.
You know?
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Santita. I have to go.
I love you, love you, love you. Thank you, everybody. Happy birthday, Paula. I'm so glad everyone. That's right. Grover Norquist, all these people. I love you all. Please like and share, and please go on to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe over there. I need you to do that. Oh, yes. And please join me at Santita J on Twitter and at Santita J Show on Twitter. Please join me over there and meet me on the Santita Jackson and Friends page. I love you, everybody. David Masiotra's book, I Am Somebody, Why Jesse Jackson Matters, Barack Obama, Invisible Man, John Mellencamp. I mean, I wonder who are you going to write about next? Okay, you don't have to tell me, but I want to know.
Santita Jackson.
No, I'm not the one. I'm not that interesting. Blessings to you, David Masiotra. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant thinker.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. And give my love to Sarah.
I will.
Absolutely. God bless you, everybody. I love you. See you next week. See you on Sunday. See you tomorrow on Rainbow Push. And see you on Sunday on Keep Hope Alive. And then see you next week here on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you.